So I'm going to get started here, and I'm going to actually start off with, hopefully, this thing working. Okay, with an announcement actually. So many of you have heard that the New Horizons mission is getting pretty close to Pluto. It's going to get there in July 14th, and there's many parts of the country that are celebrating what we're calling Pluto Palooza, and the museum is going to have an event well, and at 7 o'clock on Wednesday, June 10th, and at that event in the IMAX theater, there we'll have Alan Stern and Fran Bagenal, who are the PI and COI for this the New Horizons mission. So it's kind of a little round robin thing where you can talk to actual scientists who have done this, and so it's a pretty exciting time because this is a once in a lifetime event. And I wanted to actually tell you a little bit, give you some teasers about the mission. First, I wanted to show you just some imagery that just was fresh off the press today, where the New Horizons mission is getting closer and closer to Pluto. Here is some images that were released last month, taken in April. At about 70 million miles away, and now it's about 50 million miles away on May 8th here. And so you can see it's getting closer, and the resolution is getting better and better. These are images that have been processed a little bit to improve their resolution. But as it gets closer and closer, then these are some of the best we've seen now. We were actually seeing features on Pluto. And here's another one. So each of these images here showing April on the left and May on the right here are shown with the same aspect. So you're seeing the same features, and so therefore you're seeing the better detail that they're afforded by getting closer. So it's still 50 million miles away, which is about half the distance between the Earth and the Sun. So it's a long ways. Okay, we're going to say a little bit more about the mission. I sat in on a telecon that was presented by Fran Bagenal, who I said was the co-I on the New Horizons mission. So I thought I'd just share some of the things that she talked about during that telecon. One is, why are we going to Pluto? Well, Pluto's is a new class of objects that we have never seen before. We call them Kuiper belt objects. They're objects out, at the orbit of Neptune and beyond. And here are the Kuiper belt objects that we know of today, some of the larger ones. Eris here is the one that's actually more massive and bigger than Pluto. So it is the one that brought all the controversy of Pluto becoming a minor planet. Now, one of the things that you will find interesting about these Kuiper belt objects is they have colors associated with them. So, what's causing those different colors, different chemistries, whatever, we don't know that yet. And so Pluto is going to be the first object that we're going to get that first look at. And for comparison, here is Ceres, which is the largest object in our asteroid belt that currently the Dawn mission is at and surveying, and we're waiting for more high resolution image of that object. But you can see that that's on the same size of these other planets. And so Ceres and Pluto and Eris are all what we call dwarf planets. Here's how they compare to Earth. Pretty small little things there. And its moon Charon. Some of the things that we know about Pluto right now, that it has a big range in reflectivity. That's what these features are. We don't know what those features are right now. It's probably rich in these ices of nitrogen and methane and carbon monoxide, and potentially reddened by hydrocarbons there. So what are all these features? We don't know yet. Could be craters, could be tectonics. And actually forgot what mass wasting was. Plumes, streaks and dunes, cryovolcanism, like the moon of Triton, which is the moon of Neptune, that has these geysers that are going off. We don't think that there's cryovolcanism necessarily going on there because there's not the mechanism like tidal heating at the core. One of the cool things now is when shortly before the New Horizons mission was launched in 2006, Pluto was only known to have one moon, and now. And then shortly before that, Hubble discovered two other ones, and then there were two other ones discovered while it was in flight. And so there are six objects to study, five moons and Pluto. So they're trying to figure out how we're going to do all of this in a, as you'll see, a very, very short flyby period. And so just recently they announced this here where they finally got to image a couple of those moons. So I've got this on a repeat loop, but here's the actual image, and then with some processing you can take out the bright Pluto in the center here, and you can see the moons that are actually orbiting about here. And the fainter dots, there's the four paths that you see there, are the two faintest ones. So these are the first time that we've imaged those, or that New Horizons has seen those moons. And here they are again, comparison with Earth on those moons. So the littlest one is very, very tiny. So one of the interesting things about Pluto is that it does have an atmosphere. So they're all excited to study what is going on with this atmosphere because of the really, really low surface pressure there. The gravity can be Pluto is barely holding on to that. And so if you look at that atmosphere relative to Earth, you'll find that it's actually very extended, almost to the size of the Earth, or in fact a little bit bigger than the size of the Earth. So what implications this has when they get to the system and look at that atmosphere is that atmosphere is going to be interacting with our solar wind. Both the UV radiation that comes from the sun will ionize particles here, and then the solar wind will pick up on those ionized particles and blow on those. And one of the things that might happen is that the moon of Charon actually might have an atmosphere due to this dynamic of the interaction of the sun's radiation and solar wind on Pluto. That's one of the things they want to find out. And so, and they think that this interaction between the atmosphere and the solar wind is going to produce this kind of bow shock. Here, the sun is basically off in this direction here, and New Horizons will be coming in this direction. And they think that bow shock is going to be something on the order of where all the moons actually orbit inside there. There's also some potential danger of hitting things when they come in here. So they're actually doing the analysis there but right now they calculate the chances of something bad happening at less than 1% at the moment and coming in not to orbit into the system. Here's another movie that they had released. It says over here, expect another movie mid-May, but that one hasn't showed up yet. But it's interesting when you look at the orbit of Pluto and Charon that you can tell why we call this kind of a binary planet system there. The two objects are orbiting their common center of mass there. So, and that center of mass is actually outside the orbit or the radius of Pluto here. And these next slides are just going to show the kind of resolution that we expect to get during this flyby. So here is kind of the path that's going to take over Pluto, and it's going to, for these passes in one of its modes, it'll have about a half of a kilometer per pixel resolution. And for comparison, this is how the moon looks at that kind of resolution. Not as good as we obviously see the moon, but pretty good. There's going to be some higher resolution imaging as well, where another one is at 0.1 kilometers, and here's that one at 0.6. So you can see some of the surfaces like this. And this is the moon, I want to say Callisto, but it may be Europa that I'm looking at. Kachun, do you know? It's Europa. This Europa, okay. Kajun, I know we'll be talking a little bit about Europa later. So this is how it would look at the features on Europa with the kind of resolution. And then ultimately, one of its cameras is able to get really high resolution, about 70 meters per pixel. And so if you imagine if you had 70 meters per pixel on the Earth, this is the kind of image that you would see going on Earth. So here's the island of Manhattan here. So it's moving at 33,000 miles an hour, which is very, very fast. And it will continue to move at 33,000 miles after it goes by Pluto. And here is its trajectory as it comes into the system and goes back here. And I wanted to highlight a few things that it'll be doing. Here's a timeline of where things are. But when it gets, so the sun is off to the right here. It's also going to take advantage of some of the what we call occultations. So like over here, when it'll be able to see Charon in front of the Earth there. So anytime you have one object passing through the other, you can get a lot of information scientifically by looking in that direction. So they're going to take advantage of quite a few occultations during that time. And there's the major span of when they'll be taking data. And it's only going to be for 2 hours long. So, 9 years of flying through space, and the primary mission is going to be 2 hours long. So just in case there's some accidents in here, they are going to take some data sets out before they enter the system and get those broadcasts back. But as it goes through, it'll be taking a bunch of pictures. Like I said, it's going to be July 14th. The data itself will then take a long time to then download back to the Earth. The download rate is about 3 kilobits a second. So those of you who are used to your, internet at home, you're usually getting about 3 megabytes a second or something on that order. So 1,000 times lower bandwidth in transmitting that. So the high resolution images and all the things that they're going to be taking there to get the data in the uncompressed format will take about 1.5 years to download that. Okay, so but they will first send stuff in compressed form so that they can get some of that data, but with losses in the fidelity of the data. And then after that, the plan is to actually go to another Kuiper Belt object, and the Hubble Space Telescope has identified actually a couple of candidates for where New Horizons will go. But right now they're fixated on, okay, we got to get this right, and they have they'll potentially make the last course corrections here. They have to do it. They can't drive the thing through the orbit, as the round trip time for the signals is about 9 or 10 hours or something on that order. So basically, they're going to have to assess the situation and then figure out how they're going to be able to go around Pluto. They have enough fuel to actually do about 2 degrees of course correction, which most of that they want to use to figure out what next object that they would go to.